come to our first panel of the day, which explores a timeless yet ever-evolving question. What truly drives consumer decisions in today's world? The session is titled Beyond Brand Loyalty, the New Rules of Consumer Choices, and brings together leaders who understand the shifting psychology of today's audiences. Moderating the session is Mr. Krishnakumar K, Executive Editor, TV9. With over 2 decades of experience in journalism, digital media leadership, Mr. Krishnakumar has been instrumental in transforming TV9 Digital into a leading voice in India's news ecosystem. Starting as a senior anchor and journalist, he evolved into a visionary content and communication strategist, merging editorial depth with digital-first innovation. Join me in welcoming Mr. Krishnakumar. Joining him are Mr. Vipul Parekh, PGP 88, co-founder BigBasket and a DA recipient of IIM Bangalore. Vipul needs no introduction for his visionary thinking, which led to many disruptions in the e-commerce industry as we see today. Further, Vipul is a great ambassador of IIM Bangalore and a mentor to many young alumni and some not so young alumni of the institute. Joining the panel is Ms. Nandita Sinha, the CEO of Myntra, where she's redefining how India shops for fashion and beauty. With 2 decades of experience in retail and e-commerce, she's a champion of innovation, inclusion, and consumer-first thinking. She was recently featured in Forbes W Power List 2024 and ET Women Ahead 2023.
Welcome.
Hi. Finally, rounding up the panel is Mr. Aditya Anand, the co-founder of Yoga Bar, India's leading digital-first health food brand. A 2X entrepreneur and BITS graduate, Aditya previously founded Genie, which is acquired by Practo, and is on a mission to help India eat better through tech-driven, nutritious products. Let's give them a huge round of applause and welcome the panelists on stage.
Thank you.
And here's a gentle reminder to scan the QR code and send in your questions. Let's make these sessions interactive.
Okay. Alrighty, a very good morning to all those of you. It's a packed house in front of me. It's beautiful to watch. A huge round of applause for all of you who have taken time out to be here this morning to pack this entire auditorium. Can't be more excited. It's absolutely great. And look at the people on stage over here. I think most of the people in the audience, we're all customers of the people who are on stage, one way or the other, right? So it's great, Aditya, Nandita, and Vipul to have you here. The session is called Beyond Brand Loyalty, the New Rules of Consumer Choices. I don't know how often these rules get made and get changed again because of the way consumers are changing on a regular basis. So let's start talking about that, actually. Let me begin by asking you, Vipul, quick commerce, grocery, it's the name of the game these days. It's just what everybody is getting into. You are, in a sense, a legacy player in this new age business kind of a space. Talk to us from a very simple perspective of how quickly is consumer behavior changing and how difficult it is to sort of keep with it.
Thank you. Incidentally, to the organizers, best chairs on a panel ever. I've never been so comfortable. So, quick commerce has been fascinating and it demonstrates the agility and the speed with which customers can change. And as marketeers, as entrepreneurs, as business builders, as professionals, we underestimate the capacity of the Indian customer to actually practically turn on a dime. And we have seen this entire quick commerce business happen over the course of the last 2-3 years. And all of us, legacy players included, and I must hold myself guilty and everybody else, we felt that an Indian grocery customer would always look for the best price, right? They have actually come and told us, I don't give a damn about the price, give it to me in 10 minutes. And I really don't care what you do, as long as I get in 10 minutes, I'm willing to pay the price. And I think this is the transformation that we are seeing. And the reason for the underlying reason for the transformation is that we tend to think of the Indian consumer as one big homogeneous monolithic mass. It is not that. One of the things I tell international investors who talk to us is the way to think of India is that we have a Europe sitting on top of Indonesia sitting on top of sub-Saharan Africa. And that's really the way to think of India. The European nation, which is the top 30, 50 million people, actually behaves like Europe. They're international in terms of tastes and aspirations. Their budgets are very similar. They spend like that. Their eating habits are similar. Their media consumption is similar. And it's amazing how closely they actually mark international consumer trends. They almost follow them very religiously. And this is not by design. That's the way I think media consumption and consumer firms and all of it has shaped consumer mindsets. So therefore, when you think of the Indian customer in these three blocks, and there are multiple other ways to probably cut this down, you realize that each of these blocks is going to behave differently. The Europe is going to behave very differently from the Indonesia, who's going to behave very differently from. And therefore, when you look at the quick commerce thing and you keep thinking, why are customers willing to pay 2x of what they would pay at a DMart just for the luxury of getting it home and ordering 8 times a day? It's primarily because they have the capability to do so. They are rich, they value their time, they're lazy as hell, all of us, and they've got conditioned to comfort.
That's what the last session was all about, to make sure that we are
absolutely.
not all that lazy.
So I think that's the underlying reason. And when you start, so to me, the insight really is, if I were to summarize it, that Indian customers, there are multiple levels of customers, and you need to know which customer you're targeting. And each of those customer class behaves very, very differently from the other.
Nandita, from the price-conscious Indian customer or Indian consumer to the fashion-conscious plus price-conscious Indian consumer, you essentially serve to that growing aspiration, huge volume of customers, and the challenge of retaining literally everybody who comes onto your platform. How do you do it?
I think, thanks for having me here today and a really wonderful 2 days lined up. But I think, actually, the thing about fashion e-commerce is that e-commerce is actually quite simple. It's about selection, service, and value. But when you take fashion into consideration, there is an extra element of inspiration that comes into play. So I think fundamentally the 4 pillars are of service, selection, value, and inspiration. And I think all of the 4, how do you evolve with time? Because like Vipul said, that the Indian consumer is really changing and really evolving. And especially if you look at the last 5 years, I would say that the change has been almost very drastic, especially because you have this very young, digitally native consumer who has entered the consumption basket. And this consumer is, like Vipul said, is very global. Like if you look at the Gen Z consumer, they behave very similar to their Gen Z counterparts across the globe. So they're very trend first in nature. They want to really explore the latest trends. And therefore, how do you change your platform to build that trend first selection versus primarily, I think 5 years back, we were a very brand first selection platform. So I think making that one change was a massive change, that you made yourself a trend first platform. Inspiration, I think, really tapping into what the native inspiration habits are. So everybody's looking at 30-second videos, reels. How do you really bring that onto your platform through a lot of work that we do on our social commerce leg? And I think finally then service, because for a platform which is serving customers across the different geographies, whether they are metro consumers who are getting used to quick delivery in every aspect of their life, or there are consumers in the tier 2, tier 3 parts of the country where aspiration is actually the same as aspiration in the metros, but access is very limited. So how do you really help selection reach there? Is one part of it. Today, if you look at it, almost 50% of our deliveries in the top 15 cities would be within 2 days, which was probably unthinkable of in a category like fashion like 5 years back. So service, or MNow, which is quick delivery for fashion, they all continue to be important pillars, as well as, as we were talking on the sidelines, how a great returns experience is as important or even more important than a forward delivery experience.
Especially in your business.
In our business. So I think all of these elements together actually help the customer continue to be loyal to you. So your selection being trend first, inspiration first, immersive experiences in terms of how you're using technology, I think, and then finally service. I think these are the 4 pillars around which we try and build how we keep getting new customers into the fold, but also how do we keep them shopping from us? Because competition, I mean, it's a good thing if competition increases in a category, because then you know that there is growth in that category, which allows for different players to kind of build up niches, but then you compete with all of them to kind of build your loyalty back to the platform. So that's pretty much
Okay, so we've got price conscious. Price conscious hair is for everything pretty much. So price conscious plus fashion conscious, and now the latest, health conscious, protein conscious, to be very, very specific over here. I can tell you that I'm not hitting my protein goals on a daily basis. I try doing a yoga bar a day or two if it's possible. But here you go, you're in a category that's the buzzword, but it's also a category that's witnessing new competition entering the business on a daily basis. Right? From legacy players converting their products into extra protein products to new players entering the market. And Yoga Bar, in the sense, is one of the first movers, so to speak. How do you do it? How do you get, first of all, the attention of the consumer to come and buy a yoga bar? Because everybody wants to eat protein these days, but they have to eat your protein. And more importantly, they have to keep eating your protein. How do you do it?
So firstly, I want to thank Dr. Shetty for driving home 2 points that are really close to my heart. One is yoga, and the second is eating less carbs, hence more protein, right? Not a sponsored post, but yes. The thing is, we are very fortunate enough to be in a category, building a category, which is inherently doing well, right? So more competition tends to often help the leaders themselves, so it's not really a challenge.
Okay.
Protein is growing in part because we are building it, right? So the money that's been pumped in there. So we are not worried about competition as such, especially where we stand. We think more in terms of how do I take the share of the legacy player, right? So let's say we built out bars to a certain segment, and the Indian customer is very value conscious. So while we talked about price conscious, it's also very value conscious, right? So we realized that you can only increase the TAM of, let's say, protein bars to a certain extent. And while it is very fast growing, we wanted to touch all parts of the spectrum, right? All parts of food. So now there's protein in everything. So there's protein muesli, there is protein oats. And we believe that if you look at the overall food market, everything will get proteinized, so to speak. And that will happen in India just the way it's happening abroad. Even right now, like over the last 2 months, I think WSJ has had like 4 or 5 articles on just how big protein is, how quickly it is growing. A channel partner was asking us to build protein mithai, right? So I think you can add protein everywhere, and as long as the category is growing and we are leading it, we don't worry about competition per se. What is amazing is that thanks to all of these channel players, right, e-commerce is still like very, very early days, right? We are talking about in food, anything between 5 to 10% of the consumption is online. So as long as these platforms grow, and there is no doubt that they will grow, brands like us will just do crazily well, right? So if you look at a historical brand, it would have been impossible to think of getting to 1,000 crores in 10 years, right? Now there are multiple such brands doing it. Again, on the back of the ecosystem growth that is happening. So protein and e-commerce and now Q-commerce, just riding that wave along in itself is frankly, I mean, we don't have to do too much, right? And then you also have the general awareness of health is also increasing, right? So we feel to be very happy in this place and a lot of structural tailwinds.
So now it's more like all those people who questioned you when you started. Protein? Q? Why? Now you're like, see, that's why, right? Like now you've been proven absolutely right in the category that you pick. I'll come back to you. I have so many questions. But Vipul, you want to say something?
Yeah, I'm waiting for protein fortified water. That's the only way. With 2-3 liters of that, I'm going to hit protein goals.
Okay. Protein or, groceries, I really want to touch upon this
Right.
subject called trust.
Right.
Because, today getting people to come to your brand is a matter of trust. And making those people stay with your brand is also a matter of trust. And something like quick commerce, we were just discussing for groceries, at least, it's something you put inside your body. You put, yoga bar as well. So it becomes doubly, triply more important that the customers and the consumers trust you, isn't it? And how do you build that trust?
There are 2 dimensions to trust. And having worked with the Tata Group now for about 5 years, and that's probably the most trusted brand in India today. And you see how they operate and what they actually do as part of the ethos, as part of the culture, as part of processes to make sure that trust continues to grow is amazing. So like I said, there are two parts. One is obviously the product experience. If you don't have a good core product, no amount of trust is going to help, even if you're very great on all other dimensions. So what does that mean? Essentially means your product quality is very high. Your customer service is very, very good. Customer experience is very good. So essentially you're focused on customer experience and product quality. Let me just take two small examples. So if you take product quality, today, for example, we procure all our fruits and vegetables directly from the farm. We don't go via any intermediary. And the reason for doing that, and we have done this over the last decade, is that we have control over what goes on at the farm level. Because today we actually monitor every farm and we tell the farmer what ingredients to use, so we know what output quality is coming. I know for every batch what is the contamination level, what is the pesticide level, whether it's organic, whether it's not organic, how much of fertilizer has gone into the soil, what kind of output have we got. And that essentially builds a much safer product. I don't consume fruits and vegetables anywhere else except BigBasket because I know what the process quality is.
True
right?
brand ambassador.
I think I care more for my safety than anything else, and I'm really putting that first. So that is one part of it. Take something like customer service. We have a voice customer service, a bit anachronistic in today's days. But when we started that 10 years back, and we had this voice customer service, we said we'll set up a process that if somebody calls our customer service, the call has to be picked in 3 rings. And why is 3 rings so important? Because nothing is so infuriating if you're a customer as waiting for 15 rings. You're already angry and you're steaming and you want to lose, blow off, and nobody picks on the other end, and you're getting angrier and angrier. And that makes, so therefore, and we realized once we built the process for it, 95% of our calls got picked in 3 rings. And it's not that difficult to do, honestly. It's just about setting that goal. It requires a little bit of investment.
Being aware of the fact that
it's just really setting that goal.
Okay.
So therefore, get the core product right. So that is one part of it, and be consistent about it, so that consistently you pick in 95 in 3 rings. Consistently you deliver absolutely safe, the best quality food. The other part of trust is really what else do you do as a brand? What I call the plus. And these are about multiple things that brands do, which are very unique to the culture and very unique to the business that you are in, and different things. So for example, Tata's do a lot of community work. When COVID happened, they spent 2,000 crores just helping people and just spent the money straight, and they committed upfront and mobilized their entire workforce to help people. So that is a simple example. I'll give you an example from BigBasket. When we started, we did our Series B raise. This was in 2014. We said we'll set aside a trust for all our riders and what we call blue-collar workers. And we said we'll set up the trust with an independent trustees, and we will take about $1 million from what we had raised then, and we had raised about $25 million, so it was a substantial amount, and said we'll set up the trust. The trust's only goal is to provide educational benefits, and then later on we added health benefits to all our blue-collar workforce. So they can apply to the trust. The trust will deem if the application is fine, and so for them, for their family. The trust has expanded now, covers 30,000 people today. And this is not something we advertise. Maybe 5% or 10% of our customers know. But the customers who know, it makes a difference. It adds that patina to the brand, which is necessary. So it is about doing these things, and I can rattle off maybe another 10 things. But so therefore, there is a core product quality, and then there is all the other things that you do to really to build trust.
Right.
The last thing about trust is there is a dimension of time. Trust doesn't come in 24 months or 12 months. It builds over a period of time, so you need to be patient. You can't start measuring trust like brand score. You can't start measuring trust like NPS. You have to give it time. You have to continue doing what you believe in, and make sure that you stay focused on your goal.
Okay. Nandita, tell me, again, something like fashion. Once upon a time, Indians, or just human beings generally thought something like that, you have to go to a store. There's remember the debate about touch and feel factor and all that. That's all gone out of the window right now. People are like, I prefer buying it online. But at the same time, you have competition. You want to be able to trust the products that you buy, and in case there's a problem, that will be sorted out. So how do you, build trust and loyalty in your business?
I think what Vipul said is very important, that while we think of trust and loyalty, I mean, they are not input, they are actually output. And the input is about building a good core product. So if you take fashion, for example, I mean, and any other e-commerce business that we run, the number of things that can go wrong, I mean, if you just start analyzing that, is very, very high. How do you get that precision of getting the errors much smaller? I think, you know, whether you're on-time delivery, faster delivery, the right product, you know, the right packaging, and I think being, as a culture, being very, very open to the voice of the customer. So I think, how do you really constantly look at what the customers are saying, pay attention to it, because it's very easy at scale to actually ignore the 10 voices that come to you, which are, you know, which seem to be customers who've gone through a problem. But I think paying attention to it and seeing where is your process failing and what can you do to improve it, I think is one element of it. Like I said, I think returns experience, ever since Myntra started and even today, the single biggest indicator of a customer returning back to us is not a good forward experience, is actually a good returns experience. So if I had a problem with the product and I was able to get through the call center or, you know, have a very easy on the app return experience, and I got my money back in time, I was able to not go through too many loops, my trust on the platform is very, very high, and I will come back because I believe that while I may not get touch and feel that I get in a local store, I will get, you know, my problem will be sorted if I encounter a problem. And I think the core benefit of e-commerce is that you have so much selection. No physical retail outlet can actually mirror that selection. And value, because your business value chain is built in a way that it delivers higher value for the customer. So
any particular category in fashion retail where it's more difficult to build trust, like, you know, within fashion retail?
I would say two categories. I mean, of course, food, anything that you're, you know, ingesting in e-commerce is very difficult. But I would say two categories where trust is, it's not in different dimensions. One dimension is women's Western wear, because it is not a category which we have grown up with. It is a category which everybody is adopting as we go along. The sizes are different, the brands are different, there are no standardization, the cuts and so this is a category where customers really try out many products before they settle in on what brand, what size, what you know, what is the dimension of the product I'll buy. And I think, again, using technology to enable it. So around 50% of our merchandise today goes through a size and fit recommendation, which means that either through my past purchases or through my input, I know what my size is, and therefore the system will tell me what size to buy in each brand, each product, etc. I think the other one is beauty, because you're applying it on your face, so you want it to be, you know, right. I think the other element of trust, which is very different in fashion, is actually your customers are your ultimate ambassadors. So if you look at what people are actually trusting are not always the catalog images, etc., but the reviews and ratings that customers are providing. So what we noticed on Myntra was that we were seeing much higher conversions, much higher adoption of products which had customer reviews and ratings. And what we also realized is that the production quality of the photographs and videos that our customers were submitting were of actually very high quality. And it felt that every customer wants to be an influencer in a sense. So we started something called the Ultimate Glam Clan, which is basically, if I'm a customer, I can register to be an influencer on the app, and I can keep posting reviews and photographs and videos of what I'm buying. We've started this around 9 months back. We have 1.5 million registrations already on the platform. And this is what the consumers actually find the most useful. So you can have the celebrities and the sports stars talk about your product and your platform. But when a customer is actually wearing that product and talking about it and giving us good and bad reviews both, that's what actually built trust.
You know, while you're talking about that, so those reviews, I actually look for the real photographs. They click by the customers without the glossy finish that comes with the ads. And that really tells you what the product is actually on the ground. And you know, if influencers are democratizing, you know, celebrity endorsement, so to speak, you're just democratizing the influencer community as well. Why should only certain influencers be influencers and people who buy can't be influencers? It's fascinating. Aditya, again, trust, I'm saying this trust because I know that your bars say 10-gram protein, 8-gram protein. You literally, arrive at a particular number, which means that the customers have to believe that you deliver a certain amount of protein as a value. And no matter how nice your product is, to eat, it is zero sugar. All those things play on the minds of people. And you have newer and newer alternatives of doing the same protein-heavy, protein-high products, be it a yoga bar that you do, or you do your mueslis and the entire range of products. How do you ensure that the customer trusts the fact that you deliver the right and the maximum protein at the right price?
I'll come to that problem statement, right, with respect to trust. I actually have another problem with respect to trust that we have been trying to address and tell people that there is actually a problem. When someone tells you what high protein means, or when someone tells you rich in protein means, they're all technical terms. The reason we say 10 grams is so that it's an objective statement of fact. When someone tells you that this is healthy or this is natural, right? The problem is there are many sugary cereals that my mom, with all the best intentions possible, right, used to feed me thinking they are healthy because someone said iron hai, do roti ka something hai. And for us, a lot of education goes around telling people, it's not about me gaining the trust, but me telling them that everyone else is doing this to you, right? Because healthcare people still, the masses don't really know what is healthy and what is not healthy, right? To a large extent, very many people in this room also probably don't know that. So we try to first work on that, and when you are educating that, when your products are inherently superior, that job becomes easy, right? The second part, which is when I tell someone that, okay, I have 10 grams of protein, is it actually 10 grams of protein is also a very valid question, right? So the way we try to address it is in two forms. One is trying to be as authentic a brand as possible. When someone says that, okay, I am out there putting my face behind every single thing, I think the level of trust inherently in that brand increases, right? And India is changing again because we're talking about that. It's no longer just Caucasian models out there saying we buy this, right? Like we take pride in the fact and we put it on the back of the pack saying we are a homegrown brand, and we try to be relatable and we try to be personal. And of course we make mistakes, but we admit it. We talked about customer care here. The thing that we have realized that annoys customers the most is not admitting your mistake. You first come to them and you just say, sorry, my food, and in food, all sorts of issues happen. We don't use preservatives. We're sorry, we made a mistake, and we talk to them. And I think that level of authenticity, being personal, relatable, really helps build that trust, because there is no real way. I mean, you could go and do a lab test, which people are doing, going out there, but unfortunately, what we have realized is when you take on big brands, they go after you legally. And there are also regulations around how you can attack another brand directly. We have thought of doing those things. So there is no real direct way that we have figured out how to talk about, if I'm giving you 10 grams, actually 10 grams. So the first that we can do is we talk about being authentic, and I think people believe you because of that. The second is, yes, we keep doing education. And I think the third, which is around trust, but not specifically that question, is social proof, right? When a lot of influencers, when genuine authorities with respect to health talk about your brand and say this is something good, I believe that also yields trust. And today, though, everyone is an influencer. You do some post, I like this. They might not be able to tell you if it is 10 grams or not, but at least they can tell you if something is healthy or not.
Okay, fascinating. I'm picking this up because I know that all of you know that there is a QR code behind your delegation badges. So I suggest you please scan the QR code and start asking some questions on that, because we will be taking some of those questions over here. I have it with me. So the team also, we're only waiting for you to scan the QR codes, the back of your delegation badges. As you can see, these are some of those very talkative panelists over here. We're happy to answer so many of your questions. So please log on and send us some questions, and we'll try to take as many of them as possible. But in the meanwhile, I wanted to ask, this is a question to all three of you. You can choose who you want to answer. There's so much talk about the generation gap. Once upon a time, generation gap meant 10 years. Now a generation gap is at best 5, if not 2 or 3. And most of your consumers are millennials and Gen Zs. Is there, I mean, because between millennials and Gen Zs in any office setup, there's like, oh my God, you're a millennial, I'm a Gen Z, we think very differently. Do they as customers think and behave very differently? Be it when they're buying a yoga bar or buying a piece of fashion from Myntra or BigBasket? Any of you can choose to answer it, actually.
In our case, we see, of course, the younger audiences and younger customers just generally being more health conscious. Right? so that's.
So who's more, millennials are health conscious or Gen Z?
We see the Gen Z actually, right? Like they care about their protein. They like having protein, but it's also an aspirational and a cool thing to do for many of those, right? And they are the ones who are educating the millennials and sometimes even their parents, you should have more protein. Right? Because they're inherently so much more digital and tech first, and you can learn so much more about how things are.
I'm going to say that millennials are more paranoid about protein and health these days than Gen Z are because their corresponding age and all. That's why I asked actually. So.
Fair, right? And historically that is what we used to see, right? That at a certain age people get more conscious about their health.
Yeah.
But now protein is something that even the younger folks are having, and the second bit that I see differently is how they consume content, right? Like the Gen Z guys consume even more content, right? I still have friends who'd be like, I don't want to do too much Instagram because I feel bad about myself, right? But those guys are on Reels all the time. So the way they consume content is very, very different and far more important hence.
Okay.
For fashion, it's actually, I would say, like I said in the beginning, I think millennial customers were very brand-first customers. So when we were growing up, owning a pair of Levi's jeans was the ultimate indication of how you've kind of grown up and what your aspiration has been and what you've achieved. But I think the Gen Z customers are very trend-first customers because they are so much exposed to social media that they know what the trends are, and their desire to get those trends at the click of a button is very high. So actually that is the biggest difference, I think, from a fashion perspective. Content, I think how they seek authenticity. So they are not looking for a celebrity or a sports person to really tell them what it is, but they are looking for that one authentic social media influencer who looks like them, who's maybe like, we did an experiment where we started talking to social media influencers within different parts of the country, and therefore
the hyper-local influencers.
Yeah, the Nagpur influencer was able to talk to the Nagpur Gen Z customer the best, and that's how you kind of build that authenticity and that connect. Wellness is a big trend, so you would think of them as consumers who are seeking, even in beauty, they seek wellness versus just something which makes them look good today. So those are, I think they're very immersive in nature as consumers, so they're looking for videos, try-ons. They will be the customers who will try all the new technology trends that you kind of bring in, whether it is using conversational commerce. So I think their use of technology, their use of social media, authentic influencers, and for fashion specifically being very trend first. And I do think that a lot of platforms, a lot of legacy brands have had to pivot themselves to be able to look at this consumer in a very, very fresh way.
I asked this question because who's easier to retain? Who's more finicky? That was the reason why I asked this question.
For me, that answer is millennials. For me, that answer is millennials because
as in millennials are what?
Easier to retain.
Easier to retain.
We think that Gen Z might be shopping around much more, and they are more curious about things.
Okay.
Also, money is not as much as a challenge for the millennials generally to be overall spending, right? So it's a bit easier to.
Logical. I'm talking about influencers and hyperlocal.
Every time
your brand had a massive celebrity endorsement, that nobody, that does not know about, and then from there on, you tell us, your journey in terms of influencing the customer or the consumer.
When I hear the word Gen Z, I always let out a sigh, because to me it's a very paradoxical customer. This is a customer who talks about sustainability and really care about it, and will read things about how you treat your riders, and at the same time order 8 times a day on quick commerce for 100 rupees, knowing that fuel emission, fossil fuel usage, paper bag usage is going to the roof. So this is and you need to really see Gen Z through this lens. It is not a clean, clear-cut lens. You would think a customer who's focused on sustainability is actually going to order less. They do exactly the opposite. So sometimes, mindsets don't really follow deeds. And you need to watch where the action is. To me, I'm a boomer, so it took me a long time to figure out, and a lot of our customer Gen Z, so it took me a long time to figure out, how do you even deal with this lot? and I'm saying that in jest, so please, for all the Gen Zers here, don't take
I'm laughing because I know you're saying this in jest.
Yeah, don't take this in the wrong way. The lens I think you need to see through, the lens that I think you need to see through Gen Z is really, this is the first UGC generation, user-generated content. They grew up with the internet, right? And their media consumption, therefore, is very different. The way they interact with media is very different. Aditya talked about the fact that they share reels. One of the biggest things about them is content sharing. How many times you or I share? I think 10 times before sending any content to any of my friends, because I shouldn't be spamming them. I don't think they care at all. They'll probably send about 100, 150 reels a day or 200 reels a day to their friends. And it's a method of communication. It is their language. Now, so that's a very different language. So if you need to address that generation, you need to speak that language. So I think their media consumption, the kind of milieu or the ecosystem they've grown up with is very, very different. And you have to see it, really target him to that lens.
Okay. Okay, I think we have some questions that have started coming in, so let's try to take one of them. I think the first one is for you, Vipul. It says, with delivery within 10 minutes becoming more popular and squeezing timelines, does all of this add to revenues?
Oh, yes.
Whoever asked that question, congratulations.
Ten minutes is a drug. And I say it in the right way.
Very
it is
addictive one at that.
Very, very addictive, very, very potent. Once you get hooked to 10 minutes, you can't go back. And therefore, what's happening is the moment a customer experiences, they're wedded to 10 minutes. Doesn't matter who they buy from, but they need it in 10 minutes. That's it. So, and that's changing what it's doing. Therefore, it's expanding the grocery market very, very rapidly. So, which is why even a large base this year, quick commerce will grow at 100%. And I think it will continue growing at 50, 60% CAGR for the next 5 to 6 years. This will become the single largest retail format in the country in the next 3 years. Single largest retail format. And that's because of consumers.
A huge round of applause for that, actually.
No, that's for consumers. Consumers are adopting it in such rapid fashion, you can't believe it. And this is not just tier 1. We opened a store in Ranchi, and we had been doing business in Ranchi. It was doing some 10, 15 lakhs a day, 10, 15 lakhs a month. And he said, okay, middling city, small city, not a bad business. And we started, and then we moved the business to quick commerce. That business jumped 10-fold in 1 month.
Wow.
And I'm wondering who's ordering in Ranchi, in Tirupati, in Jalandhar, in Bilaspur, and it's just amazing.
Yeah. I'm curious, Nandita, I know the fact that you have a huge market in tier 2 and tier 3 cities. I want to ask him, before I come to you, I want to ask him, how many people, how do, as far as yoga bar sales go, are you restricted to the big cities, the highly exposed market, or do people buy yoga bars in smaller towns as well?
I was very surprised with this data when I had this. If you leave apart the top 10 cities, 40% of my sales still come from the cities which are not the top 10 cities.
40%?
40. What has, however, happened is because of the advent of, and I'm only talking about the online business, we're not talking about the offline business because we are present in Reliance and the DMarts of the world, and that is a fairly long split, right? We are present in all of those stores and we do reasonably well. But we're only talking about online, but what we saw is because Q-commerce today is, however, very big in the top 4 or 5 cities. So, and that has increased our total revenue. So hence the share of the top 4 cities has become significantly larger because of Q-commerce. It's just not scaled as much in the other cities as much.
Okay, fair enough, fascinating. So which means that, look, consumer is a consumer.
No, I mean for us, we partner with a lot of international brands. Almost 40% of the sales of international brands actually comes from the tier 2, tier 3 cities.
There you go.
And
the numbers match.
Yeah, even when you look at beauty, for example, you would think that the very specialized formats are only in the top cities, but actually all of the formats that the top cities are consuming are equally relevant in the tier 2, tier 3 cities. So I do think that distinction is becoming, while the size may be different, but you can see that they will get there in terms of size over a period of time.
Fascinating. And in fact, we have another audience question that's specifically meant for you. Let me ask that as well. What kind of AI are you using to sharpen the consumer clustering and trust? That's the question. In fact, I want to expand that question more. Whoever asked that question, congratulations. Is that how do you use AI to build brand loyalty?
Yeah. I think there are 3 areas in which probably we will continue to build on the AI. Of course, not on the enterprise side. I mean, there is a lot of work on the enterprise side that AI will do in terms of helping us really be more efficient. But on the consumer side, on the shopping experience of consumer, I would say 3 areas. One is personalization, because when you're carrying 20 lakh or 25 lakh styles on the platform, ultimately, I as a consumer only want to see the 5 that are important to me in that day and for my query and what I want. So how am I personalizing the selection? And e-commerce has also created this very large choice, which how do you help consumers go through that choice and arrive at what they need? So I think personalization and almost I would say that a lot of experts have been saying it that you will get to an app of one. So how do you really create the app for one person? Everybody's app is very personalized to what their fashion needs are. And that is one area where AI will truly, it seems very simple, it seems very basic, but I would say that is probably going to be the most powerful thing where AI we will use to be able to really personalize well. And that personalization also on the base of size and fit, because that's important for fashion, like what fits me, what looks good on me, and what's the size I should buy. I think conversational commerce, which is about helping customers. We ask each other, I'm coming for this conference in Bangalore in August, what should I wear? And that's how people actually shop for. So how do you use AI for conversational commerce or more real-time conversations with customers? I think that's the other area. And I think on fashion, the other area where we will use AI, and we are already using, it is to identify what trends actually matter to the consumer. So when there are so many trends that are available in the market, whether it is from social media or from the trend agencies, how do you marry that with what customers are searching? What are they clicking on? What are they buying? And how do you help your ecosystem of brands and sellers to actually bring those trends in a very, very short period of time to the consumers? So I think trend identification, really enabling that trend cycle and trend life cycle with AI is going to be the other area where we use this for consumers. But yeah, from a consumer shopping lens, I would say these are the 3 big areas we will use AI.
Okay. Vipul, I also want to ask you about AI just in case, because from the time you start searching on the app for something, it gives already before you could, and then by the time you hit pay, the order is on the way. So, in fact, there's other ad campaigns which have sort of tried to mimic what all can go wrong when the search, the prompt is different. So your business had AI built in it, even before AI became the big buzzword, isn't it?
No, I think, and I'll keep it short, we're running out of time. I think what Nandita spoke about, which is really personalizing to the customer. Now, we started doing this through machine learning, now that's become AI, it's far more powerful. Yeah. But you're really trying to figure out what has the customer done before and projecting and forecasting on that basis. And that's really the underpinning. You're forecasting on the front end, you're forecasting on the back end for your inventory. On the front end, you're forecasting for what the customer wants to see.
Yeah.
But one last intriguing question for everyone, and I've really just recently started using ChatGPT to buy. It's a little broken, the experience at this point in time, but worth trying. And I can see a future, maybe 3 years, the next time this conference comes around, that a lot of people will be using it to buy. And in fact, I'm starting to wonder, what are we going to do when agentic AI starts buying on our behalf? So,
well, I think we'll have to cross that bridge when we reach there, I'm guessing. But for now, we can only continue to build. We have one more question from the audiences. We're almost out of time over here. I'm going to take the last question. And again, this is open to all 3 of you. Please feel free. What is a sticky factor for an Indian startup / brand to consider in this new era of burning cash? Who feels that that's a burning question that needs to be answered? I think you're laughing the most. Go for it.
I think the fundamentals are still always going to be the same, right? Build something that customers love. Really, like if you can burn all the cash that you want to burn, but if your product doesn't, hit the mark, or if your service doesn't hit the mark, it's not eventually going to make money.
Okay.
I would say, I mean, plus one to what Aditya said, build what consumers love and do it consistently, because it's easy to go wrong if you're doing it at scale. But I think more important, also being very agile. I think when we started the conversation, Vipul said that the customer has leapfrogged in the last 3 years, and that is going to constantly keep happening. So how do you keep agile to really change your entire business model, change how you think about your service model, your product model, to be true to what the customer wants at that point in time? And I think just being agile, being innovative, and not waiting for, I mean, I'm reacting because you said we'll cross the bridge when we reach there, but sometimes just anticipating what is the bridge to cross and then building it before time and crossing it before others do, I think that's also important.
I only said that because, the example that Vipul gave, I really did not have any answers. So from my mind, I'm just thinking, okay, I'm sure you guys will know how to cross that bridge when it comes. Vipul, your take on it.
There's never been an era for startups burning cash. Don't fool yourself. Only the top 2% startups get that luxury. And that only happens at the intersection of very large markets. And remember, the amount of capital you burn, you finally need to return it one day. So it only gets harder. It doesn't get easier.
It only gets harder. It's better you start building yesterday, for tomorrow rather than today, actually. So, but I'm afraid we're completely out of time over here. Ladies and gentlemen, a huge round of applause for these wonderful panelists.
Thank you.
Who've been such a good sport and really, had some of the most candid answers to give. I'm going to thank Vipul, Nandita, and Aditya for joining me on this panel. And thank you to the audience as well for staying tuned to the panel. Thank you so much, guys.
Thank you, panelists, for that enriching discussion. I request you to please stay on stage. We now invite Mr. Srinivas Moramchetty, IMB alum and Director, Customer Acquisition of our key sponsor, Sumadhura, on stage to felicitate our panelists and the moderator for this enlightening session. Request the team to bring the mementos. May I request the panelists to remain on stage for the mementos? Thank you. A big round of applause, please.